There's no talking you in. You're right there.
Whew, no warm-up. Just dive in, huh?
Right there. Hello. Hi. Welcome, Matt, you handsome fuck. Look at those teeth. Jesus Christ. Merry Christmas to you and your family, Matt.
Thank you, sir. How was your holiday?
My
You getting ready?
holiday
You getting
is,
ready? You in the mood?
yeah, man. I'm pumped. It was a great year. A lot of good music came out, and we did something cool, man. You know, the work we did together is really cool. I've always enjoyed working with Vinyl Me Please and the records that you put out. And I decided I wanted to do a show with you about it. We clearly, get each other and we vibe on records. So, why not take advantage of this whole best of thing and use it to rank your records? We'll do a VMP best of. And there was plenty to talk about. Just let me do my monologue for a little while there. Just stay. You're fucking eye candy, all right? All right.
Yeah.
Just stay there and look cute. So the deal is that they've released, other than the album of the month, which is 12, they've released over 60. Matt, you can chime in if you got the exact number there. But
I don't, but I bet you it's just south of 70, high 60 exclusives, probably something like that.
that's a lot of records, man. And they were all over the map in terms of genre. So it ought to make an interesting show for us to kind of rank your top 12 album of the months type of thing and compare them to my list. And then kind of just go into the VMP pressings and which ones kind of stood out for you most. You got your list ready?
I got my list ready. I'm feeling good. We had a great time putting together music this year for Vinyl Me Please. We had some things on our list that we've been working towards trying to get access to, rights to, working with artists, working with labels. And you'd be shocked how some of these projects take multiple years before we can deliver a record of the month. It's a big part of our labor here, and I'm psyched on how our 2017 came out.
It was a really good year. And one thing that I can say made me proud here is that I think for me, anytime somebody sends records, if you're going to if a record club is going to presume to choose 12 records for its members, it's a pretty tricky thing, So you have to be able to touch so many little, you have to be able to introduce new music to people while respecting the classics and teaching people about old stuff. It's a balancing act, and I see that. For my opinion, and I'll leave the floor to you after, definitely. But it's just, you did an admirable job of that.
Thanks, man. We take a lot of criticism, and you're always going to, music's so personal. Of course, not everybody's going to like our picks, but what you just said is a big key to it for us, is to try to give the breadth. Think about things in terms of record collectors and people building a collection, that you need some different genres, you need some different decades. You just necessarily have to try to represent all the corners of great music, and it's impossible. We're never going to do it in a single year. We probably won't do it over the life of the company. There's a ton of great music out there. We try to surface some stuff that we think people really want or need.
Well, look,
So,
I mean,
yeah.
you definitely succeed in keeping me current, and that really played into my top 12. Okay, I mean, I ranked them, but just to say, listen, I ranked them in terms of my personal favorites, so this top 12 means nothing at all. What do you think we do this, dude? We talk, first of all, about our top three, and then we kind of just do three in a row. It might be easy that way.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay,
The
cool.
other thing, just as you've led us all to this, I mean, when we talk about the record of the month, that's what we're providing our subscribers. And we talk about these exclusives. So those are things that we sell in our store that we're working with labels and artists to do exclusive variants. Those are more of the small, that's gonna be 500, 600, 1,000 units, all numbered. And one of the other things, just on the general, what you said about trying to curate a list of 12 records that kind of spans different corners of music. This year was big for us because we basically made a program called Swaps available to anyone who has a membership. So if you're hearing things on this list that just isn't your taste, now anybody who's a member of Vinyl Me Please every month can choose from 20 or 25 different titles. So we're going to keep doing our thing to try to curate a record of the month that is meaningful to people, that maybe exposes them to new stuff. But if you hear us announce, oh, you're doing Betty Davis self-titled, if that's not your bag, you don't like getting funky, I mean, I don't know why that would be the case.
Why would
That's
anybody not
insane.
take Betty Davis, dude?
I know. But if you didn't want to, you're always going to have a choice. And we think that's important because we know as collectors ourselves, like making it personal is super important, and feeling like you've got a choice to pick your own record.
Yeah,
so.
I agree. Well, wow, man, you guys did that fast. So at the beginning, you couldn't make any swaps. Then at the end, I was up, like, I didn't even know about this current thing, but it used to be that you can make 3 swaps a year, and now you're basically saying that if you don't like the album of the month, you're not stuck to it at all. You can basically grab anything from, like, the exclusive releases that you do every month?
Yeah. We try to put together a list.
That's great.
Of 20 to 25 other titles. So, you're going to find something that's hip hop. You're going to find something that's like a classic jazz or blues record. Like that swap inventory, as we call it, like, is super diverse, and it's going to feature past exclusives. It's going to feature these kind of smaller pressings we're doing for the store. So we really want we want to provide a valuable curation and surface some great records, but we also want to give people a choice to make the club feel like something that's their own and they can have their own experience.
As far as I'm concerned, you've broken past all of the really big hurdles, which is fucking cool, man. And I'm looking forward. Listen, I'm going to talk about the stuff that didn't work either, and because I think there's room to grow. And honestly, Matt, the value of something like this is, my opinion doesn't mean anything, but on the other hand, this is what I do for a living. This is what I do for the rest of my life until I die. So if I'm saying something, it's not because there's a criticism or it's more a question of, you're trying to sell your records. Obviously, there are always these little hurdles, and watching the trajectory has been fucking amazing. But, just quickly, it's like metal. We're going to talk about metal and the lack of it later.
Sure.
Top 3, dude. You want to start?
You start.
Okay.
I want to hear what yours are.
I have my top 3. I picked all 3 of them for different reasons. The first one, I would say the most important one out of all of this was, for me, St. Vincent, Mass Seduction. Because...
Ooh, all right.
Yeah. Mass Seduction, St. Vincent was the first one. Second one was Main Source, Breaking Atoms. The National Boxer was number 3, and I have reasons for all of them. Okay, I guess what I'll do is I'll start with my number 3, National, a Boxer. First of all, it hit one of the big checks for me in terms of any record club that's going to earn any type of loyalty, and that is that you've successfully managed to introduce me to a band I did not know before, but kept being on my radar, right? So, I will admit to having a certain bias against Pitchfork, and that whole alt Pitchfork scene, I think, is just... listen, not to disparage, I do read it, but I think it's a fucking joke, okay? So, for me, a lot of the times when I get stuck around that kind of, like, post-2000 thing, I'll admit ignorance to a lot of it because I simply don't know it, and because my my entry to a lot of these bands is something that I don't respect. You understand what I'm saying?
I do. I do.
And my belief, obviously, with a show like this, I mean, this is what it's about, but it's a question of being able to listen to the music yourself, talk about it, and hear 2 people. You can't fake excitement. If a record's good, a record's good. You can't fake it. Okay,
that's true.
Well, National would have been a record I would have never purchased because it falls into that Pitchfork thing, right? So I distrust it. Why? Because if we got to use the H word, hipster, it's almost like there's this thing, it's happened in every fucking generation, and it'll continue to happen. People use music as some kind of identity, right? To project something rather than kind of like listening to it for what it is and just kind of like appreciating it, digging into it. It's almost like they got to carry it like a badge, very much like a rock shirt.
Yeah, of course.
That can be disingenuous. That's the reason. I don't know. Now I'm talking about Pitchfork. That's kind of the reason why I don't trust that. But you guys have brought stuff to the forefront that broke through that bias, and you did it twice, and it's actual proof that 2 out of the 3 titles in my top 12 here are exactly that. They fall under that category. The National Boxer, okay, and St. Vincent Mass Seduction was the other artist, my top artist on your list, because I had no idea. I understood her reputation. I saw the thing with David Byrne, and anytime you see something with David Byrne, for me, immediately I'm interested. But I don't know about how you do things. I don't discover music via MP3, and that's not a snobbish thing. It's a question of I have the option of playing records all the time, and the needle drop, I like it to mean something. So by picking something like St. Vincent, you forced me, not forced, obviously, but you put a record in front of me, the old way you did it. And I dropped the needle. And I'm in love with St. Vincent. I'm in love with her.
There's a lot to love there.
I didn't know.
I know.
If you can do something, if you just fucking blasted me with the Saint, because I picked another St. Vincent, it better be on the next box, but it's just, if you do that to somebody who loves music, man, we all get it. When you get turned on, think about the first time you put on a Kamasi Washington record, or I know you're what's it called? You're a OK Computer guy, right? The first time you put on
Radiohead guy.
Radiohead, sure. Yeah, that's the band, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna get the floor soon, but I'm gonna tell you the second reason why the National was amazing.
Talk to me.
I don't know who did this, Matt, but what put that one that high was not just the fact that you put it on my radar and I love the band, and I know now that I need Alligator, and I'll get Alligator eventually. But you did something that I thought was the coolest thing in the world. You added a bonus 7-inch to the new record before the new record came out. That, to me, tells me that you understand vinyl so well because you played right into the history. A 7-inch often came out before any album. I mean, okay, once upon a time, people bought the 7-inch because that's what they bought. But
sure,
in terms of album, the 7-inch was very often used as a promotional tool. And that's exactly what you guys did. And you sold me. You fucking sold me on that. It's like, dude, man, this is old school radio hustle.
Totally. And I hope those 7-inches end up being like maybe kind of collectible. It was just like a cool way to preview that stuff. I mean, I think one of those tracks on the 7-inch was available digitally at the time, but the other one was like the only way people were hearing it was on those 7-inches that showed up in the BMP boxes. And I just think that's super cool.
It was a great idea. You know, I know that the links are on YouTube, but you see, the thing is it's not just a matter of selling vinyl because it's a hot thing. It's a matter of embracing the culture and understanding where the culture comes from and understanding your responsibility, my responsibility, okay, for bringing that culture forward, okay? And part of that culture, part of that history is using the 7-inch as a promo tool. That's exactly what you did, and it caught me off guard, but for me, yeah, man, I remember as a kid going out and buying the single before the album came out.
Yes.
You did that, man. You guys fucking rule. Awesome.
That's great, man. I'm glad you dug it. And that well, I'll save my picks, but we had some interesting overlap on that.
You know what? I've talked enough. I'll let you go, and I'll talk about the hip hop stuff later. Go, man. I'm curious about your third.
I am totally curious to hear that you put Main Source so high up. I think that's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
For me, my top 3, I'll start from the bottom because we shared a top 3. National was third for me. Totally different reasons from you. The National has long been on my radar as a band, so I didn't have the moment of this is new and I'm getting exposed to it, but that record Boxer in particular will always be precious to me. because that is the record that got me back into vinyl. So I grew up around records just by way of my father. He was a Detroit guy, so we had a lot of Motown stuff. And,
Awesome.
then like every 90s kid, or not born in the 90s, but I was like a high school kid in the 90s, we couldn't be bothered with records. It was all CDs and the big dumb booklets of all the CDs and shit,
Sure.
all the way through, kind of,
Cartoons, man.
yeah, all the way through the like mid end 2000, like early 2000s. And I went through a divorce. It was got a little ugly, and my wife and I had kind of separated. I was living with a friend for about a month,
Ooh.
little cooling off period. I came back to my house, and she had made the decision. She was done. Took everything, right? Took the TV, took the furniture. It sucked. And instead of replacing the TV, the first thing I did was buy myself a new stereo. And it was the first time in 20, 25 years I'd owned a record player. 20 years, let's say
What made you
that I'd owned
gear? Were you working for Vinyl Me Please at this point?
No, no, long before Vinyl Me
What
Please
made
was
you
a
pick
thing.
up What made you pick up a record player after not playing with records for 25 years? What was that?
I just felt like TV was all kind of trash, and I was down, man. I was going through a divorce. I felt like shit, and I'm the kind of person that, like, I think it's important to sit with those feelings. I
Oh
think
yeah.
end of a relationship in a lot of ways like has the natural stages of grieving, and I wanted to grieve with music, not with distractions of TV and all the other shit. So instead of replacing my TV, I got a stereo, I got a record player, and the very first record I bought for myself was the Nationals Boxer.
That's
And
amazing.
I spent a lot of time drinking whiskey to that record and trying to figure out how to be an adult and
But
pull myself back up and figure out how not to make some of the same mistakes. So
I'm
that
still
record is precious to me.
well, look, I mean, I completely understand. I mean, I remember all of those records as well. And, I got my story. I call them sad bastard records,
Sure.
but what made you specifically? Because I'm wondering, listen, maybe I'm grasping at straws too, but was there something specific, right? This major change that happens in your life, and we've all had them. I've been married before too. I've been, divorced as well. But there's that confluence of stuff that happens in your life. Was there anything specific to deciding, you know what? You could have spent it with CDs. You had a bunch of them. You had more.
Sure.
You could have spent it with all sorts of... Why vinyl? Why the turntable? It seems like a weird kind of decision. Or maybe not.
Yeah, I think I feel like I was maybe feeling nostalgic a little bit. And I don't know. I think part of it was the intentionality of it, like that I wanted to be spending time like just listening to music. It was literally, got myself one good chair because the couch was gone and all that. And I figured I was just going to sit there and listen to music. And if I knew the focus was going to be on music, then all the reasons why vinyl's a headache, like that people talk about when they're like, I don't want to get into vinyl. It's a pain to store. It's a pain to move. It's inconvenient.
Yeah.
Like I've got all my songs on my phone. Well, if all you're going to do is sit in an empty room and listen to music, then none of those things matter. I had plenty of room to store it. And I don't know. To me, it was, I bought a used Thorn's turntable off of Craigslist. I liked how it looked. It was like a
Great turntables.
late 60s.
Okay.
Yeah. TL, I don't remember, 60, TL 60, 65. I don't totally remember. And so it was relatively cheap. I didn't go out and like buy some grand setup. I got a bunch of used gear that I liked the way it looked, and I liked the idea of doing music intentionally or spending time with music intentionally.
Nice. That's what I was digging for. And for a little while, I thought you were going to completely fuck up the story because it felt like you were swimming and trying to find an idea, and I'm there. I just wasted 2 valuable minutes on this.
Whatever. You got to find your way, man.
Dude, you made me fucking proud. What else was on that list? Keep talking. People love you. People love you.
Whatever.
Your ex-wife was wrong.
Well, she was right for a time, and then she was wrong. So it was the National was number 3.
Yeah.
For me, it was followed by Fiona Apple's Title in number 2. Part of this is just like a thing that I love about Vinyl Me Please. We got told over and over and over that this record would never happen. There were conflicts between Fiona and her label. There were she had never released this on vinyl, so there were no like vinyl masters. And it in the history of Vinyl Me Please, which is only 4 years or 4.5 years at this point, it is the project that took us the longest from conception to putting records in people's hands. And I think it sounds fantastic.
It does.
And it gives me some 90s feels. So I'm proud of that record. I'm sure that's a thing that comes through when I play it. I certainly enjoy the music, but I also, every time I put it on, I'm like, hell yeah, we got this done.
Yeah, well, cool. I mean, I completely get it. And I was happy with that also because fact is I don't know Fiona Apple. She was number 7 on my list. Okay, and I realized that she was a lot bluesier and ballsier than I gave her credit for. And again, it's not because I had anything against it, but it's just I don't trust, like a lot of this stuff was being played on radio, right? And I don't trust radio to be the curator of my musical taste. I just don't. It's not credible. You understand?
Yeah, that's fair.
Friends is a different thing. If I hear somebody flipping, you know, but so a lot of this stuff passed me by, and it's not because the music wasn't, it's just, it passed me by because it didn't pass that first filter, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Radio is not fucking credible to me. Radio is about selling ads. That's what the space is. So they'll cast a nice big net to catch as many fish as possible. They don't give a fuck about anything else. There's no curation involved. Fiona Apple was very popular at that time, and that's why she flew over my radar. And you know what? She's bluesy, man. That record sounds amazing. I loved it. And
think of that. That was a 18 or 19-year-old girl at that time. Like, she had a lot of depth for her age. I think she's a true talent.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And what was your number 1 again?
The Notorious B.I.G. Ready to Die.
All right.
It was just anthematic when we talk about that booklet of CDs. I played this a lot in my car. I love this record.
Yeah.
I love the package. It was a big deal, and there was some like whole secrecy and stuff around the fact that we were able to get the samples all included in these records. So this is the most true version, because they Bad Boy Records put out a version 3 or 4 years ago that I also own, and I can remember dropping the needle on it for the first time, being so disappointed that it didn't have all like the little interludes and things that I remember from the CDs.
You know, the only reason they cut that stuff out is so that they can sell more records and please the censors. So it's kind of like you're taking the balls out of the record once you censor it.
But they also didn't have clearance. There was like a $4 million lawsuit around those samples, because when Biggie originally recorded it, he was not a huge artist. They didn't know how far it was going to go, and a lot of those samples weren't originally cleared. So there was like a whole legal red tape thing. But it's nice to hear it the way the artist like intended.
Yeah. Well, actually, that kind of brings me to my number 2 pick. You were wondering why Main Source. I'll tell you exactly why Main Source was my number 2 pick, Breaking Atoms. It really, it falls into a much more general feel that I have. If I had to pick one thing that you guys did right, like the most right, where you hit it completely out of the park, is your hip-hop curation was fucking bang on. Okay?
Nice.
You put out a lot of hip-hop records that, again, fell into that period of time where I wasn't listening to that. I don't like fucking Puff Pastry. I can't stand Puff Pastry. He makes me crazy. So for me, and you remember, like, a lot of that hip-hop was all about money and power, and, you know, I kind of related. You know, you remember the East Coast versus West Coast deal?
Oh, yeah.
I related a lot more to the West Coast because the West Coast just seemed dirtier and grittier. And dude, man, I grew up a fucking WAP in Saint Michel, man. I grew up in my own type of thing like that. So it just speaks to me a lot more, where Puff Pastry seemed to be going about the glam and the glitz, and it's the same reason that Missy Elliott totally got over me. And of course, I mean, I am now admitting I made a complete mistake on all of those. But you know how it is, again, that first filter, right? So for me, Puff Pastry is a fucking douche filter. The minute you get that guy involved, he makes me crazy. So I didn't listen to it. But you guys, by putting this stuff out, made me re-look at it. And I'm a fucking enormous fan of Notorious B.I.G., and it's completely because of you guys, completely because it is that you put it on my radar and made it available to the people. Because I guess it took maybe 20 years away from Puff Pastry to kind of just not think about him anymore and see the record not as a Puff Pastry production, but a Notorious B.I.G. record that didn't have all the glitzy champagne videos and diamonds attached to it, because that's the stuff that turned me off. And I just dropped the needle and listened to it as a record. And it was fucking glorious. It was glorious, and it made me rethink that whole thing and go back to those early 90s. And it's like, what the fuck was this West Coast versus East Coast thing? This is fucking awesome. You just have to take Puff Pastry out of the picture. It's not that I didn't like Notorious B.I.G. He's fucking awesome. Big Papa's awesome. Puff Pastry still sucks. So
that's the truth.
And and the fact that you guys got all of the samples cleared, I'm going to give our friends, our listeners here and viewers the backstory. I remember when you were dropping this record and you told me, dude, when we got it, we couldn't believe that all of the original samples were on the record because it hadn't been done before. So we just basically shut our mouth and didn't say anything to anybody until we just sent all the records out to every single subscriber, so that if they realize that they made a mistake and sent you a bad test pressing that was not authorized, there's nothing you can do. The records were already sent out. I thought that was amazing, dude. Amazing.
Yeah, it was a real messaging headache for us because we wanted to be like, dude, this is amazing. All the samples are on there and blah, blah, blah. But we stayed real quiet about it and wanted to, make sure members were going to get it and there wasn't any sort of injunction or anything that kept us from shipping. So it was a little bit of a wild ride, but I think people that own that record, that is far and away like the definitive version of Ready to Die.
It is. Oh yeah, it sounds amazing. It's just, look, man, hats off, And this is definitely not because you're my sponsor, because dude, you guys suck at metal, okay? Just to kind of balance the whole thing. It's just, but you got to give, as a fan, you've added to the legacy. When it is that you're releasing records and adding to the legacy, that's when it is that, in my opinion, on a music side of things, you've written your story. You've written yourself into music history, okay? Because nerds like me dig this shit. And there's a reason why one pressing is, you guys have stepped that level up for a few of them. And Notorious B.I.G. was definitely a big one. Kudos, dude. Thanks. I loved it. That was number one, man. You said?
That was number one for me.
Okay,
and I think that's why we get on so well on, doing these little video chats and whatever is like, I don't know, me and most of the people here, all the people here at Vinyl Me Please, we're those same kind of collectors. That stuff, clearly matters to us. Otherwise, we could just do a bunch of basic play the hits kind of thing.
Dude, so. It's possible that I will have a special guest. I've just had an Anthrax sighting, and if he shows up, maybe I'll grab him and I'll show everybody Anthrax. The Killer of Mice.
Killer of Mice.
Look, so Main Source was the same reason. Main Source, you put it on everybody's radar, and I think it's a ballsy move to put your money, your resources, and your reputation behind a record that nobody knew about. I'm not going to pretend like I knew about it. I didn't know about it. You guys put it on the map. I loved it. I loved it for all of the reasons that I loved De La Soul and all that shit that came out at the time. But you can't know it all. So yeah, that's why it was number 2, because to me, anytime somebody introduces me to a gem, like a real fucking gem that needs to be listened to, hey man, bravo, you know.
And hell, if you want to talk about that East Coast West Coast feud, that Main Source record has the first bars from Nas, who ends up in that like strong East Coast side. And so if you're into any sort of hip hop history, I mean, look up Main Source. They were crazy influential in the early 90s. And it's cool to hear a very young Nas like rap for the first time at, I think it's called Live at the Barbecue. It's a great track.
What do you say we move on to our next 3?
We better, we're going to be here all day.
Holy fuck. Number 4, Betty Davis. Number 5 was Notorious B.I.G. Number 6 was Miles Davis, Sorcerer. Betty Davis, there's no big story behind it. It's a funk jam, and it's not something that everybody has. And, ooh, ugh, that was gross. And the bubbles came up in my nose. I'm sorry, dude. Ooh. It's just, like, it kind of singed my nose hair. It's like...
It's right in the ears there.
And you guys put a record on that hadn't been reissued properly in a while, and just made it widely available. Like Light in the Attic was already there. I know it was a co-production that you guys did with Light in the Attic, right? So they'd released it, but you gave it an audience. You gave it, fuck, for all I know, maybe even a bigger audience than when it originally came out. I don't know how many it sold back then, you know, but very cool. And I'm pretty sure that I wasn't the only person who was fucking banging to this during the summer.
Oh, yeah.
Number 5, we went over it, Biggie. Number 6, Sorcerer, because Miles Davis is awesome. I already went over the Miles Davis thing. Give me yours. 4, 5, 6.
So my 4, 5, 6 was Moses Sumney, Aromanticism, Main Source, which we already talked about, and Betty Davis. So she made my next set as well. I probably have played that Betty Davis record as much or more as any of the other records we've done this year. It puts a smile on my face every freaking time.
It's awesome.
Main Source, all the reasons, you know, you kind of said. Main Source was a new story to me as well.
Okay.
And I really fell in love with that record. And then the same with Moses Sumney. As far as new music that came out this year, doing new releases for us is always the biggest gamble. We get the privilege of hearing it, you know, way far in advance. But, you know, how the people are going to react, not just to our records, but that music in general, is a huge unknown. And for me, I thought this record was beautiful. He's, you know, got a style musically that's kind of hard to put a label on. It's not really R&B. He's a crazy vocalist. And yeah, I sat and spent time with this record. And I know you and I talked about it, and you kind of put it in the Pitchfork, you know, maybe hipster camp a little bit more. For me, this record just really landed, and it was one that just grew on me and grew on me and grew on me. So
many people have picked it in their best of.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're certainly not alone in that feeling. It seems like it's critically acclaimed, and it's just, I don't know, man. It just sounded too affected. There's some artists that just sound too affected that doesn't do it for me. Fucking Tori Amos. You know, I used to really like her, you know, and I saw her from the front row, and can I tell you the minute what happened that turned me off to Tori Amos? It's fucking great story.
Please, because I saw Tori Amos as well and was totally turned off.
Oh, listen, dude.
I want to hear your version.
Front row center. I had this really fucking cute Indonesian girlfriend, and like in every relationship, I'm always the guy who introduces them to music, so I was very into that whole fucking Lilith Fair alt female stuff, and Tori Amos was one of the really big ones. Sarah McLachlan and fucking Juliana Hatfield. There were a bunch of them. I loved all of them. But so I introduced this girlfriend of mine, and I got front row tickets for the what's the second tour? The second tour, the one where she's in the box there, that's the second album, or is it Under the Pink? Under the Pink, I think.
I think it's Under the Pink, yeah.
Okay, so she's there and she's humping her piano and she's getting all into her music and like all being all emotive, and it was cool. But fuck, it's gonna make me sound like such a prick, and I was. Oh, Anthrax, I'm telling a story. Fuck off already. So, as we're going, she's all happy and she's fucking starting to twirl like Cinderella and starts talking a little bit too fucking flaky for my taste. And I suddenly didn't connect because seeing it, I found Tori Amos to be too affected, and I wasn't able to go beyond the fact that my girlfriend started doing these weird pirouettes, and I don't know why it bothered me so much. I sound like such a dick. I am such a fucking dick, Matt. On
the one hand, you've got this real sensitive side. You were totally into the Lilith Fair thing, and then your girlfriend twirls a few times, and you just fall apart.
And I fucking broke up with her a couple of days later. It's so bad. I'm so fucking sorry, little Indonesian girl. You were really cute and really sweet, and yeah. Poor her.
That's amazing.
It sucks. I'm such an asshole. So yeah, why are we talking about Tori Amos?
Music that's like too affected. You put Tori Amos and
Moses
Sumney in the same category. It was a bit of a tangent.
Yeah. So there you go. Okay. Let me just interject in terms of, you guys did a lot of that affected stuff, and that's the bottom of my list. So actually, just to tell you, in terms of, to continue this thread, the bottom of my list is they all fall in that category. Okay. Again, please, I'm not making a value judgment. I'm just saying what doesn't work for me. Did you go through your middle six? Am I interrupting, or can I jump off here?
No, yeah, we're through the first six for both of us.
Okay,
you want to do the bottom six all together?
Yeah, because you put Moses Sumney at which number out of 12?
4 for me.
Okay, he's number 10 for me, and for all of the Tori Amos reasons, all the Tori Amos stuff, very affected, and it just didn't connect with me, and a lot of people disagree, and I'm really happy about that, because it's the kind of thing that'll make me go to the record again. Kevin Morby, city music, and there was a story behind every song, and it was the beginning of the summer when that record went on, and I remember listening to it and getting a completely different feel. And then all of a sudden started reading about the stories behind it, and it's like, well, fuck, you just ruined my feel. Why didn't you just let me enjoy, and so I don't know. I didn't go for it. It didn't vibe with me.
So was that 7 for you?
What?
Kevin Morby, where did that fall on your
number
list?
11 out of 12, second to last.
It was 11. Okay.
And number 12 for me was Tennis. Tennis, the whole fucking vibe, the whole kind of like grainy picture, and the Barbara Streisand thing gives me fucking tremendous douche chills. Tremendous fucking douche chills. The music is good. That's not even it. The music sorry.
I know. You got to separate the art from the artist. But I had the same thing. I liked so much of what we did. I totally support and ride for that Tennis record. I got the privilege of hearing it really early. I think for what they've done, I know they present as like the total hipster couple, and there's that part that seems very manufactured, and maybe the cover puts you off or whatever.
Yes,
but
it does.
I think that record, you could play that 10 years from now, not tell somebody it was Tennis, give them no context, and that record will actually hold up quite well. I think it's a lovely
Anthrax,
dreamy kind of pop record.
This is Anthrax, people. He's killed mice live on Vinyl Junkies. Now you can see who he is. I'll take him away. Look at this. Isn't he? He's beautiful. Anthrax, ladies and gentlemen.
Look at him.
So
he's a killer.
The killer. And what was what came after that? After the Tennis?
So for me,
Tennis was where in your count?
Tennis was 12 for both of us.
Okay. So you get what I'm saying, right?
I do. I say it with a little bit of remorse, because I think History will be very kind to that record, that it is fairly timeless, but I loved most of the stuff we got to do this year, so it ended up at the bottom of my list.
The image is part of what it is that you're selling, and sometimes you buy it or you don't. It's not the only thing, but there's some artists where it's just the music and others where it's the image. And you look at someone like St. Vincent as the most obvious example where everything is thought of. And
Totally.
I just love that aesthetic, and I can see the precision. I can see the level of depth, the level of just... Fuck, everything's so intricate and professional and fucking great, and it all works together. Whereas with tennis, I don't know, man. It just feels like this is what we're going to project. Chelsea Wolfe kind of feels the same way for me. It's like, you know, Chelsea Wolfe is kind of a unicorn dying in the forest. It's that whole, I'm going to try something, okay? Can I try something?
Sure.
It doesn't work. It'll work.
Oh, there you go.
I'm singing Chelsea Wolfe songs. Demons. Why
For
did I
anybody
do
who
that?
doesn't know Chelsea Wolfe, what they don't get is if she caught you in a bar, you would be crazy intimidated. She is a terrifying unicorn.
I have most of her records. I do, man. I like her. I do. But
yeah,
Pain is Beauty just didn't do it for me. And it's funny because there was a thread that said that Pain is Beauty was somebody's favorite record, and it's just for me. Couldn't do it. Why did we talk about Chelsea Wolfe? Oh, Affected. The Chelsea Wolfe effect. Where are we supposed to go with this, Hessler? What else is at the bottom?
Just give me your 7 through 12. I don't think I've heard it in order.
Okay, so I'll start with number 7. Oh, yeah, I did. Okay, so Fiona Apple title we talked about. Gorillaz Demon Days, number 8. Number 9 was Panda Bear, Person Pitch. 10, Moses Sumney. 11, Kevin Morby. And 12, Tennis. Gorillaz was a big deal. I mean... Yeah. We talked about Fiona. Gorillaz was a big deal. I remember how quickly that sold out. And I remember some of the bullshit you had to catch because of that, because it was selling for exorbitant prices on the aftermarket, Discogs and such.
Yeah.
It's not like you can control that. You made so many and it sold out.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it sucks. We're working 3 and 4 months in advance. So you have a huge run on records. That's the thing about records. It's like once they're pressed, that's not a switch you can just flip and... Yeah. Make some more.
So what part of yours do you have to do now in order for us to wrap up this area?
So I'll just give you my rundown. We're pretty similar, although I'm number 7 Gorillaz. Number 8 for me is Miles Davis Sorcerer. Number 9 is St. Vincent, which is crazy because that was your number 1. Yeah. But I had more of a background with St. Vincent, and I love Mass Seduction, but it's very pop feel, and I like some of her earlier records better. So it's a interesting thing how context can totally shape how much you love a record.
Okay.
10 for me was Kevin Morby, 11 Panda Bear, 12 Tennis. Awesome. But on the whole, man, I am a proud papa for the 12 records that are on that list. I vouch for any of these.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, if I had to really look at you see, I had always gone through the premise. I didn't know about your unlimited swaps until just now. And I always thought 3 swaps a year, so I used to play the game with myself. If I had only 3 swaps, which ones would I swap? Or if I had unlimited swaps, which ones would I swap? Legitimately, the only ones that I would have swapped is Moses Sumney, Kevin Morby, and Tennis. And very possibly eaten my words when it came to Moses Sumney. I know that... You know, the thing with that stuff is kind of the Bob Dylan effect. I know everybody likes him, but it's just, and it's just, for so many people whose music taste I trust to like that record, there's got to be something there that I'm missing. And I always want to know what I'm missing. It's kind of my hero, John Peel, you know. This was a story told to me by... the bassist of Napalm Death, Steve. What the fuck's his name? His name's not coming, but it's just they had done a Peel session, and John Peel had told him, look, there's no such thing as bad music. There's the music that you understand and music that you don't get yet. It's not a fault of the music. It's just it hasn't come across your path. And I'm kind of like along those lines. I don't know why I told you that. Do we go on to our favorite exclusive picks now?
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting segue, right? Just talking about the swaps thing. It's interesting to think of all the other, whatever, 60, 70 titles that you could have picked when you say, like, hey, I might have swapped Moses Sumney. It's funny, within Vinyl Me Please, there's like a whole community that like acknowledges themselves as team no swap, and they just never will swap a record. And it's a little bit because of things like that. Like if you listen to Moses Sumney, you know, I think there was only 2 tracks that were released when we dropped that record. Okay. You know, you would have passed on it, and then it's a thing that's not in your collection, and then all of a sudden people are talking about it, exactly what you said. A lot of people whose taste you respect are like, hey, this is pretty cool. I think that's why a lot of people decide not to swap, is they want the experience of discovery. And I know it doesn't hit all the time, but for me, and it seems like for you, it's the same. Like when you can discover something that's brand new that you didn't have an association with, and it hits for you. Moses hit for me, didn't hit for you. Those are the moments that are like the most fun as a collector. Yep. So I think it's interesting when people always swap for the comfort food. They just want a thing they're familiar with, and I get that, but man, there's just no better experience for me than discovering something brand new that stretches me a little bit, and now all of a sudden, like, I'm a super fan.
But that's why I'm interested in exactly that. I'm happy, I'm grateful for that experience, and I'm always willing to change my mind on anything, because there's no such thing as right. Sometimes the music just catches you at a certain time. That certain time for me, believe it or not, I really started liking Joni Mitchell only recently. That hasn't happened for Bob Dylan for me yet. That hasn't happened for fucking REM yet. That hasn't happened for a bunch of bands. That doesn't make the bands bad. It just means it hasn't happened, you know? But the swap, this is actually does lead into our next thing, because all the records we're going to be talking about for the rest of the show are records you could have swapped out. And it's a fucking amazing list, man. You guys crushed it. My number one pick is something that hasn't even come yet, because it's just, listen, Piero Umiliani has to come. You don't understand. Since our last conversation, Hessler, I read on that album that you guys put out. You remember the Grail record I told you about, Today's Sound? That's my Grail fucking record. Grail, I love this record. 7 songs on that comp that you guys put out are on that record.
Oh, you're going to love it.
I saw all of the albums, and it's like I either have those records or I used to have them on CD and I don't have them yet. And that compilation, it's almost a crime to have that cover on that Umiliani compilation, because it's so much weirder and funkier than the cover lets on.
Well, I'll tell you, man, I am going to end up loving that Umiliani record. You've convinced me. I got off, when we had our chat last week, I took home the test pressings from the office. I got to listen to the test pressings over the weekend. It's so good.
Stereo wakes up, It's so sonically amazing.
It's all over the place. It's a really cool ride. I love, for me, there's like a class of records that I think about in terms of like going on like a musical ride, and that thing is like a carnival ride. It's crazy.
Well, I told you, man, it's fucking Umiliani, man. I've been going on the Umiliani trade since forever. And in the soundtrack world, I mean, people know, but you guys kind of brought it outside, and it's fucking yes, man. He deserves every bit of credit that comes to him over and above Mana Mana. And once I saw the albums, I don't even know the songs, okay, because I don't know titles. Too many titles to remember, but once I hear the songs, I'll know them. I knew like the track listing. I knew like the songs that you guys pulled the albums from, and I can't wait to see what it sounds like, man.
Nice.
That's my number one all year. That's my most anticipated record, no doubt.
I say you want to just go through your list of your full 10, and then
Dude,
we can like pick a few that are interesting and talk about them. What else was on your list of exclusives?
Daniele Lupi. Daniele Lupi was beyond VMP. Daniele Lupi was my surprise, just complete fucking out of the blue Dark Horse best of record. I would have never, ever, ever gone for it. And when you talked about the fact, it's because I wasn't able to catch on to the stories. I didn't know who Karen or the Yeah Yeah Yeahs are because I don't know the Yeah Yeah Yeahs. To this day, I don't know them, and I didn't know this Daniele. I didn't know Daniele Lupi. And I didn't know the connection to Danger Mouse, and I didn't know what's the other fucking band. What's the band?
Parquet Core.
I don't know who they are, so I wasn't able to catch all of that. But then all of a sudden, you sent the album, and I wasn't expecting it. I didn't know you were going to send it. You sent the record. I listened to all of them, and I read about the Danger Mouse thing and the spaghetti western collaboration that they do together. And I listened to Karen O. Talisa, dong dong, and it's like fucking garage rock explosion. And then there's songs that sound like Talking Heads, and it gives me kind of like that new wavy Blondie thing, and it's like, this is a fucking awesome record, and it's one of my favorite records of the year. And
nice, you're really showing your Italianness,
dude. It's fucking awesome. If you would have not sent it, it would have never crossed my path. So yeah, and I've noticed that people have been talking about Milano a lot more. Nice. I would add Sister Rosetta Tharpe to that because me and Rossiter, that's an org release. Me and Rossiter have been talking about Sister Rosetta Tharpe for a while. Then all of a sudden the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame comes in and decides to bestow some title. And I don't know if you've noticed how many stories about Sister Rosetta are popping up. Everybody's digging into Sister Rosetta all of a sudden. So
yeah. I feel very validated. We chose to do that exclusive back in August, and
then it happened.
And then it happened, and you're like, hell yeah, she deserves all that
credit. Oh yeah. No, dude, I remember before the record even came out. Actually, it just came out at the independent store, so everyone can get it now. But I remember before it came out, and I was fucking losing it. It's like, Jesus Christ, in Canada, you don't get Sister Rosetta Tharpe records. So it's like, I never came across one. I was thrilled to get this record. And, then the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Then I see you guys chose it, and it's entering the conversation. You know what? She's dead, but fucking right that gospel raw blues is finding a new audience. I love it.
Yeah.
Why don't you give me a couple? That's 4 of mine, but we got to break it up. People are going to hear me talk too much.
Yeah, well, we're all sick of hearing you talk.
Yeah, I understand.
For me, the number one exclusive we did, and I feel a little bad talking about it because I know a lot of people probably weren't able to get their hands on it. We did the first ever pressing of a mixtape by a female hip hop artist who goes by the moniker No Name, and the mixtape's called Telephone. So I think we only were able to press. I think we pressed 1,500, 1,000 for the club, 500 for her to be able to sell on tour and do direct. And as a hip hop thing, I adore her. I think she's a great female voice in modern hip hop. She's got a almost songbird quality and this lyricism. And No Name Telephone was a huge win. The first VMP Classics title. So we're doing that other subscription where you can subscribe and get just jazz, blues, and soul. We call it Vinyl Me Please Classics. The first one we did was Archie Shepp.
Yeah.
I was into it, but for me, I didn't have an association, so I ended up giving it to one of my good friends. But the one that's really connected with me on the classics has been that John Lee Hooker record, and it's turned me into somebody who's looking for John Lee Hooker albums at record stores, and I've just become a fan through getting that exclusive.
Dude, I know that I've mentioned on the forums, but I just inherited a record collection of over 1,500 pieces, mostly classical.
I saw that.
Okay.
That's crazy.
From a man I never met. There's an entire story there. And it's the deepest John Lee Hooker, among other artists, collection I've ever seen in my life. Ever, ever, ever. I'm going to tell the story on tomorrow's show for the episode, but all this is to say that you remember how crazy I was going that I didn't have a copy of that because it sold out fast, you short shipped, there was a whole bunch of things.
Yep.
Part of that guy's collection was an original pressing of It Served You Right to Suffer, man. So I now have
Comes
2
around.
versions.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah. But
and then 3 and 4 for me on my list of exclusives were that Madlib Flights to Brazil.
oh yeah, that's on mine.
Such a great record, and so cool that it first time out on vinyl. And then the 4th was a one that I didn't have much context for, and I learned more about it through Vinyl Junkies, was that Link Ray.
Oh yeah. Oh hell yeah.
Just wasn't a thing that was on my radar, and I love that Link Ray record.
It's a beast of a record. You're talking about the self-titled one, right?
Yep.
Recorded in a shack. It sounds it.
Yeah, it's so lo-fi. It's great.
Yeah, it's not just lo-fi. It's it's the bastard son of every cool fucking genre in the world. So it's got country, it's got rockabilly, it's got everything. And
Absolutely.
it's literally recorded in a chicken shack. It's not One Way Static. Who was it? It was Tidal Waves Music, sponsors of ours, that put out that whole session. And you guys, the fact that you picked up on it was, yeah, man, it was amazing. I believe those sold well, didn't they?
Yeah, that did well, and it was, I think it's got something on it, like you said, for everybody. And if people didn't know the history, I mean, it's such a cool thing to connect with, and
Yeah.
I think we'll be hearing more about it as people are, kind of reconnecting with some of those stories.
Yeah.
I think that record rules.
So that's your 4, right?
Those are my 4.
Okay, let's go with another bunch for different reasons. Attica Blues, for me, I definitely lumped. That was amazing because I still haven't ever seen an original, but I kind of put that in a genre category. I think that you guys, besides just the hip hop, the reason it is that I mentioned the hip hop over even the jazz is because there's a big area of hip hop that I didn't know. So you guys literally educated me and brought that back. And to me, that carries more value. When it comes to the jazz and the blues, I know that stuff a lot more. And I have a pretty deep jazz catalog and appreciation. So Attica Blues amazed me. I didn't think that you'd put it out, but you really stuck. Dude, man, you guys put out some records I never thought you would, man. Eddie Gale's Ghetto Music. I was amazed that you put that out. Amazed. I think about the other jazz. I have all of it here. You put out a lot of Black Lion stuff. Bud Powell, the Essen Jazz Festival. I think that one's in the store still. Earl Father Hines, man. Tour de Force. This piano, it's a solo live piano performance that just was fucking awesome. What else did you have? This is just the jazz. Johnny Griffin, a blowing session, which was a blue note. Alice Coltrane featuring Pharoah Sanders. Journey and Satchidananda, which is insane. Fuck. What else did you have on the jazz? Yeah, and that's it. There was a bunch of blues. All this is to say that as a collector of this stuff, and, as someone who had a lot of these already, pretty deep picks, man. Cool. You're doing jazz right. It's fun. You're introducing as curators to a younger audience, maybe, who didn't grow up with this or are just beginning to get a taste for jazz. You're taking a very interesting path. Not one I would have taken, but I kind of understand that there's a release schedule and licensing that goes around whatever decisions you make. And I think that you're doing an admirable job.
And we're trying to work with, the big, the Impulse, the Stax, the Blue Notes, to really see what, I don't know, hasn't gotten a reissue. There's some stuff that you could pick that is maybe more obvious, but also it's easy to get out in the world. And when we've got an opportunity to do something that maybe is in real need of a pressing, it's a little more exciting.
I've already given you one, but now I'm going to say it out loud so that if all of our other sponsors and all of the other people that work in the industry, I told them months ago, so it's his problem, but somebody really needs to put out Archie Shepp's The Magic of Juju.
Yes.
That needs to come out. Please, I beg you. Please, I told you, you guys need to get behind that, man.
I like it.
What do you pick? Keep going. Give me picks.
So one of the ones that was a new release this year was War on Drugs, new record, A Deeper Understanding. I don't know if you've connected with that or not. I think the guy, people equate his sound a little bit to Dylan, at least vocally. But I like those War on Drug records. One of the early club records that we did was a record by them called Slave Ambient, and their new record, Deeper Understanding.
Okay.
It goes into definitely the high end production stuff. So I think you lose some of the. I like when music's got a little bit of the rough edges, but it was one of my kind of favorite releases this year, and I liked the exclusive we did. Then I've got High on Fire, and that'll give you an opportunity to bitch about how we don't do enough metal, but I really liked our High on Fire pressing.
You killed it.
And then I've got some stuff that's on your list too, the Milano, the Sister Rosetta. But one of the ones that was early this year that I'd kind of forgotten about until I was kind of going through the list is the Nick Cave Boatman's Call.
Yeah.
That record is awesome and really underappreciated as far as a thing. It was a very cool pressing, and it sounds amazing, and that's a great Sad Bastard, I don't know, record to drink whiskey to as the nights are getting, it's dark and cold. I find myself like grabbing that Nick Cave record and being pretty psyched on it.
Yeah, I think you capture the same type of mood for me too. It's a little bit of a dark record, but the Nick Cave fan club is fucking huge. It's kind of like the Tom Waits thing, it's just people will buy everything from the catalog and just go deep because it's one of those unique voices in art, and nobody else is Nick Cave. So yeah, that one didn't make my list because there were so many other things, but yeah, that was an amazing record. Keep going, dude.
What else is on my list? I think Missy Elliott, Super Duper Fly. We talked about how that kind of wasn't on your radar. It was very cool. It's 20th anniversary, and that's one of those moments where a record like that totally falls out of your brain, and then there's like the needle drop moments of dropping the needle on something you've never heard, and you get emotions from it. There's something great about like dropping the needle on a record you haven't heard in probably, I mean, if it's a 20-year-old record, I probably hadn't heard it in 18 years. But immediately I was like, oh, this rules so much. I'm so excited to like be able to own this. This was such like a hip hop great. And you think about Missy Elliott's role as like a woman in hip hop in the 90s and where hip hop's going today. And she deserves to be celebrated. And that is like a record that is awesome to listen to and is a complete piece of history.
You forced me to pay attention to that record, and the thing is I've realized the error of my ways when it comes to Missy Elliott real early. Again, for the same puff pastry reasons, that whole MTV area hip hop lost it for me unless it was from the West Coast, and I kind of put Missy Elliott there, but I always understood that there was more of an R&B quirky element to her, and it's been years, literally years, that I've been telling myself I need to grab myself some Missy Elliott, and I couldn't find it anywhere, and you can't. I've never even seen one out in the wild.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you guys drop Super Duper Fly, and I will buy anything Missy Elliott. So yeah, you guys crushed that project. It sounds great, man.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
What else rounded out your list of exclusives?
Okay, so let's say if I had to go down to my last bunch, Timothy McNeely, Funky Movement, because I appreciate anything from Now Again. That 420 Chalice All-Stars falls into the Flights to Brazil. Are you sending that, Hessler? I need that record, man. Yeah,
420, not, you already have Flights to Brazil.
I have Flights to Brazil. I want the 420 Chalice All-Stars, man. But yeah, I'm very sold on Madlib and Now Again and Aegon and all that stuff. So those were big ones for me. High on Fire for sure. You guys were, people are all going crazy right now, as am I, for the Thela box set that's curated by Erykah Badu. I want that, but, you guys were ahead of that. You put out Zombie on the Knitting Factory Records, so a really good pressing. That was at
Yeah.
least 6 or 7 months ago. That was good. I think you did blues really well. You put out that Sun House record, Father of the Delta
Ooh,
Blues.
that's Sun House is so good.
Oh yeah, Kalela Take Me Apart was a surprise. I really enjoyed that, and I enjoy the experience of bringing hip hop forward, and thought that she was an interesting voice. Enjoyed it. Willie Nelson, yeah, dude. And just to round off the hip hop, Diggable Planets you got behind, Pete
Oh
Rock,
yeah,
Pete Rock, Soul Survivor.
Soul Survivor.
I fucking drooled when you released that one. That was a huge one for me.
Can I tell you?
Um,
Can I tell you a dumb Pete Rock story?
of
I feel like I
course.
might even told you before, but I don't know if we ever talked about it. We're doing one of these chats. So we did a we did a show at SOB's in New York that
Okay.
was a reunion show for Main Source
Yeah, I remember.
back in February, and it was a great honor to get those guys back together. I mean, they had a little bit of a falling out. K Cut and Large Professor. It was rumored they hadn't really talked in
Hmm.
5 to 7 years. It was great to bring them together, and it brought out like a ton of New York, like kind of hip hop royalty, at least from that '90s era. And I got stuck working the door at that show,
Ooh.
and we had a guest list. I mean, the whole venue maybe is like a 500, 550 cap room,
Okay.
so it's not huge, and the guest list was like 380 people. It was
Ouch.
yeah, it was so stupid, and everybody associated with it was throwing people on this list, and one after another, I'm having to like talk to these folks, these old school hip hop personalities, and they're giving me their hip hop names, and then I've got to look for them under their like given names. I'm feel like a total Colorado white boy idiot, like not knowing who some of these people are, but
I'm pretty sure you came off that way too.
oh, I'm sure. But the best moment was, uh, I'm like all flustered. There's a line around the block, and I look up. This guy's super tall, and I'm like, "Hey man, do you have a ticket?" He's like, "No, I should be on the list." I was like, "Okay, what's the name under?" And he's like, "Under Pete." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, Pete. What's your last name?" He's like, "It's probably under Rock." And I just looked up, and I was like, "Oh shit!" Like this is fucking Pete Rock standing here, and he was no attitude about it. He's like, "Hey man, if I'm not on the list, don't worry about it. Let me know. I'll just call one of the guys inside and get it straightened out." Like I was
He
like,
was cool
nah.
about it.
I was like, Pete Rock, here's your VIP bracelet. Get the hell in there. It was amazing. It was just like such a like when your jaw literally hits the floor kind of moment. And he's like, yeah, last name's probably under Rock. And I was just like, oh God, I'm a giant idiot. But yeah,
Um,
it's amazing. And I love that Soul Survivor
Soul
record.
Survivor is still the only Pete Rock record I have, and I need it all, man. I want the stuff with CL Smooth
Yes.
so badly. But you guys kind of provided the first vinyl taste. You really crushed hip hop, man. Um, Bad Bad Not Good made my list also.
Ooh, the late night tales thing they did.
Fantastic compilation. I knew already a couple of
So good.
songs, but I found the production value. Uh, Whereas Madlib's Flights to Brazil, kind of obviously it's culled from, rare 70s records, it kind of had that grainy feel, which worked perfectly, right? And you
Hmm.
kind of interspersed it with some Brazilian airline call outs type of thing. It really worked very well, worked like a travelogue. Um, Late Night Tales
Yeah.
was kind of like the chill out, bring the lights down and maybe fucking smoke a joint, smoke a cigar, or just chill out with a martini thing. And they captured that vibe, and the production was a lot cleaner. That's not to say
Yeah.
slick, but I found that all of the songs, the instrumentations, they put them together fucking flawlessly. And I'm a huge fan of compilations, and yeah, that one gets played a lot, man.
That's awesome.
Are we done, or do you have another one to close?
I mean, that's it. I could probably keep going, but those were the ones that were important to me. We did a pressing of a record by a band called Big Thief
Yeah,
that is
Australian, right?
yep, it's awesome. It's real sad. If you want to have some holiday sad times. That Big Thief record is equal parts sad and beautiful.
Okay.
That kind of just missed my cut for top 10, but I really like that record. And we could certainly keep going. I have a thing I kind of want to throw out, and I will apologize in advance if this is stepping on your toes. But if it's a thing where we can get through giving away some records, if people have listened to us ramble for an hour, I would propose two things. One, I mean, it's one of our biggest pleasures here at Vinyl Me Please to get to try to bring some of these records to life that are really hard to find or maybe are in dire need of a repress. So if people are watching this and they want to comment on records they'd love to see us try to get done next year, and then if you comment a record you'd love to see us bring to life, and then pick anything from the store, I'd be happy to say, like, let's pick somebody from the comments. We'll pick three
We
people
could do that.
and give them whatever they want to do. They want that's currently available in our store. If they list a record that they'd love to see get pressed in 2018, gives us a little something to look forward to. I can't make any promises. There's a lot that goes into bringing those pressings to life, but
I think
we're doing it for the vinyl community, so I want to hear what people want.
you know what? I think that that's an amazing idea, and I'll go one step further and just kind of do some kind of promo, because it's really generous, and I think it's fun content, and yeah, we'd love to do that. It's really interesting because curation is going to be a pretty big thing. I'm going to be curating a project with Rossiter over at Org, and fuck, man, I know we've talked about some curating that could happen over at Vinyl Me Please, and I can tell you, look, man, I would absolutely love to just curate metal. Okay? Because it can be done, man. And you guys just... How long did High on Fire stay in the store?
I don't know. It moved pretty fast.
Damn right it did.
Yeah.
Because you chose right. Now, you know what? Any metal fan watching right now, tell me something. Okay? We had this discussion, Matt and me. All those blackened recordings that came out of Metallica, Master of Puppets came out. If Vinyl Me Please took that and they put it in the store, would have that been a safe bet? Do you think it would have sold okay? Yeah. That's the kind of thing. It's just, you can't just put it because somebody who's in it, somebody who knows this music and knows what the release schedule is, man, I'm pretty sure that you'll find a metal audience.
I hope so. I mean, it's definitely underserved, and I know, metal kids, they're passionate about vinyl. They love.
Yes.
I know a lot of people shop straight from the record labels. I think that's a great thing too. But if there's some stuff that hasn't seen the light of day that should, maybe there's a place where Vinyl Me Please can step in and help. Whether it's metal or something else. But I think metal is a great space for us to have some more opportunities to do cool shit.
The best thing about you is you guys are you're really good about just keeping everything open, and you know what? Anybody who watches somebody who hit a grand slam complain about that fucking strike he whiffed on is an asshole. Right? We have 2017 to look at, and I look at the long game, and I mean, I hope all of you guys are happy, because your collection makes me happy, man.
Yeah, we're happy and feel extremely fortunate to get to come to work to do this, and yeah, I hope 2018 is even better. I think you're gonna see more hip hop. You're gonna see more jazz, blues, and soul. There's a chance we might, delve into some other genres for genre-based subscriptions.
Beauty.
Our Essentials catalog, we've got, because we're working 3 and 4 months in advance, I know we've got some titles on lock, and I can say first half of the year is going to be amazing. If you are watching this, I'm going to be a total shill. If you're watching this and you haven't gotten something for a music lover in your life, our Vinyl Me Please gift subscriptions are delivered electronically, so you can still shop today, tomorrow, Christmas Day, and have a gift subscription delivered. It's a great way to start the holidays, and I can guarantee we've got some bangers in 2018.
It's funny how somehow I'm completely comfortable with the shill. And the reason it is because you understand what community is, and community is you take, but you also give. And I just look up at the time, and we're clocking in just about over an hour and 15 minutes. And the thought that went through my head is the reason that the show is long is because we fucking love what we're doing. We love this music, and it's natural for a conversation to happen this way. It's been such a distinct fucking pleasure going on this journey with you, Matt, and with Vinyl Me Please, really. And I'm looking so forward to the stuff we're going to do in 2018. Man, you don't even know the half of the stuff, the shit we're working on. And people love Hessler. You know, can I tell you something? I've told you this in the past. I've told you this behind the scenes, but the shows with you on them just do better. They do, man.
I'm flattered. I'm sure it's not me. I'm sure it's the Vinyl Me Please community that I represent, but I'm totally flattered, and I love having a chance to talk music and share some stories and not be grinding on a million other things. So thanks for having me on and talking music, man.
Happy holidays to everybody there, man. You guys, thanks for watching. Like Matt said, just to close off, if you have any album that you would like to see, that you would like to suggest a Vinyl Me Please should be released in 2018, very, very serious. Just put it in the comments and they will actually be considered. You heard it from Matt. I got it right, Matt?
Yeah. I would say put an album you'd like to see in the comments, and then put something you'd like from our store, and we'll pick some people, and I want to be able to give away some records in the holiday spirit, and also just hear from the community. What are records that you're dying to have on vinyl that are hard to get right now?
So there you go, guys. Last minute Christmas present. I'm going to make this happen all the way until Christmas. I'll make a post of it. Okay. Nice. You guys just put it up there. I'm going to name 3 of you to win these prizes. Matt, let's say goodbye for the year.
It's a pleasure, man. Happy New Year. Can't wait to see all y'all